Cathryn, hi.
Such a pleasure to see you again.
I know, actually, this is our second meeting.
Yes.
The first was during the Munich conference, and I was astonished by this extreme support of all participants in Munich conference of Ukraine. But now we see new consequences of the terrible Russian shelling of Kyiv or all the cities. How we, the public opinion leaders, the influencers, can keep the public opinion in US and European Union in the right way?
Well, I think the easiest answer to a very complicated and dire question is empathy. Is human story. I think this idea that, you have 18 bombs dropping on Kyiv to try to expose the air defense systems, that you're trying to hold the population of Ukrainian cities and towns hostage, that, what we just learned over the last couple of days.
You mean compassion?
Yes, compassion, but the fact that, Ukrainian citizens in Donbass were being, treated as human shields effectively, those are stories that resonate with people and remind them that this is not some geopolitical chess game.
Yeah.
And that the longer we take in doing things like furnishing the F-16s, not only the training piece, I'm glad we're there now. In my mind, we should have taken this decision right around the Munich Security Conference, right around the painful anniversary of the war.
So, Cathryn, sorry, did you understand correctly? This some kind of tactics can avoid us to be some kind of dependent on the political games. I mean, these tactics can allow us to be independent.
I think that's precisely right. I think, you still have 61%, 62% roughly of Europeans who, across the board, no matter their nationality, support the Ukrainian efforts to reclaim their territory, restore sovereignty across the entire territory of Ukraine. When you go to the geopolitical conversation, you begin to see the Americans might have slightly different objectives, the Europeans might have slightly different objectives. That's where citizens get lost. That's where they no longer know, what are the trade-offs that we have to make at home in our own public policy. This is how, in the United States, it got a little bit of traction, that some presidential campaigns from the Republican Party said, Ukraine is not in our vital interest, that got some traction for a little while.
Yeah.
But you still, again, there have a population that well over 60% supports NATO, supports NATO's objectives in Ukraine also, right? You have very senior leaders of the Republican Party, certainly in the Senate.
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, and others saying, look, this is absolutely in our vital interest because this is a systemic conflict. What does that mean to the average American who's trying to put food on the table, who's trying to figure out how to solve their own problems, who sees their energy prices fluctuating like crazy? Same thing is true of the Europeans. So the way to remind people what's at stake here, not just by saying this is democracy versus autocracy, and by constantly telling this human story and exposing people to the incredible amount of burden that the Ukrainian people are carrying, both in terms of the fighting at the front lines, but the families, the displaced people, the people that will be displaced for on average 15 to 20 years, those are entire courses of lives changed because of what the Russian Federation did to a sovereign Ukraine. And I think that's part of the way that you keep the focus on what's really at stake here.
And politicians will not use the geopolitical shift to gain something,
Well, I think that, they do need to make the big decisions, but they also need to be able to tell people, because the difficult decisions in European public policy and in American public policy, that they will come. The Europeans made it through the first rough energy winter. This second energy winter is going to be tougher because we're not there with renewable energies yet. We're not there with the structural changes we need to have yet. So in order to explain to the Europeans why they need to, quote unquote, keep the faith, it's still critical that our politicians go to Ukrainian cities, that people understand that all of you come. I sort of feel that half of the Ukrainian parliament is always around Europe making the case. And then we also understand that rebuilding is not just about buildings and infrastructure. It's first and foremost about people. It's about restoring the faith of a civic integrity. I mean, Russia is trying to pull out Ukrainian civilization.
It's propaganda. Yeah.
It's propaganda. It's the renaming of cities. It's the kidnapping of mayors.
Yeah.
It's, eradicating a civilization, a history of people. And, it has to be about giving all of that back. So it has to be supporting mayors and local leaders in creating transnational justice, in figuring, in demining villages, in giving, allowing human life to come back. And I think if you tell the story that way, you can continue to have that support.
Thank you. I think both of us, we can do it together.
Good to see you.